Welcome everybody to today's office hours. Last week we went through the My System Needs Systems section, and we didn't get all the way through it there. And honestly, whenever we started it, I didn't figure we would. And some of the responses that I got from that one last week was really good, and there were some crucial things that I missed that I also want to kind of circle back on, just like any good movie like Star Wars, Back to the Future. There's always some part that actually, I guess Back to the Future didn't have one. They have a prequel, kind of go back and talk about the things that we maybe have missed or whatever. So we're going to do that and kind of hit some highlights of things. I am going to do just a slight review as well. So for those that don't know me, that are listening to on replay, my name is Mark Stepp. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer here at Realvolve. Spent the last 33 years coming now, helping real estate agents create a sustainable business using automation and the technology that's available. And what we're doing today is talking about systems for your systems. And we did this last week, like I said, but there were some things that we didn't get to, some things that I missed. And so I want to kind of go back over them. I'm going to hit a quick review very quickly. We talked about one of my training aspects called core strategies, which is conversions, operations, retention, experiences. It's the things that happen each and every day that you do business. And this particular series is really just covering the conversions section. So realize that. We talked about one of the frameworks for conversions is what I call the real success pathway. It's, recognize and reach out, establish connection, assess and advise, and lead to agreement. And it's just the path that you take as real estate agents to get your customers, figuring out who they are, what they need, and getting them to sign on the dotted line to get either a buyer's agreement or a listing agreement of some sort. After that, there's still lots and lots of systems and things that you can apply before that, but I'm just taking this small section of getting the lead, nurturing that lead, and getting them to the agreement. So that's kind of what we have been talking about. The first part that we talked about was recognize and reach out, and that's really a matter of going in and identifying your ideal client. Who is it that you want to be helping, and giving them the content that they need to self-identify. If you have certain pieces of information that's geared towards them, they're going to identify that, and they're going to ask for that content. And once they ask for that content, you can provide it and go through there. So one part that I really didn't cover well is making sure you guys can get your ideal customer. And I kind of assumed you had an ideal customer, and really didn't cover that as well. I did have a couple people reach out just asking, what's the best way to help identify that customer. And while that seems trivial at some point, you really get to a point where you want to make sure that you're giving the right content to the right people. So identifying that is extremely important. But we talked about recognize and reach out. And if you guys go back to last week's video, you can get more detail on that. We talked about establishing the connection, building that relationship using a workflow, giving them content that is geared towards their need and nurturing that relationship from the time that they get whatever lead magnet you've provided them. If you're talking about first-time home buyers, which was the example we used, what all the conversations that you do, all the emails you send, all the text messages you send should be geared around that first time home buyer, so that they know they're in the right place. They know that you're giving them the content that they need, and they're going to stick with you. Okay, so nothing worse than signing up for information on a website as a first-time home buyer, and then all of a sudden you start receiving stuff about luxury homes or whatever, and just like it's not relevant, it's not what I'm looking for, and you'll lose them. So making sure that the content is where it needs to be based off of who they are. So what I want to do is now kind of go into the assess and advise. And this is the part where as I got the questions and as I got into redoing a few parts of these, it's like, man, I really messed up. I didn't give you guys everything that you need. And so I want to backtrack just a little bit. So I had asked everybody, and if this is your first time here, if you did not provide, if you want this document, just put your email in the chat and I will send this out. If you put it on last week, then you'll get it. I did not send it out yet, but I will go ahead and send it out after this one. But basically, this is the real success pathway, kind of what we were talking about as far as the parts of this. But I've also included a bunch of prompts and things that you can use when using ChatGPT to help identify the things that you can do, that then takes that content and put it into Realvolve. So again, this whole series is really about systems for your systems, and the one that I'm focusing on, because it's so powerful, is ChatGPT's ability to help you as a real estate agent, but also include that content inside of Realvolve in different ways. So like I said, going back is like, well, do you really know who your ideal client is? And many times real estate agents will say, well, I'll help anybody that's wanting to buy or sell a house. And that's fine. Don't get me wrong. But if somebody is looking for something particular, they may go to your website, and if they don't see what they're looking for information, they don't see what they're looking for, they're going to go somewhere else. So having your advertisements, having your website, having your social media posts, focus in on particular types of clients, you're going to resonate with them. You're going to get their attention. And once you've got their attention, you've set the hook, at least. You've got them to a point where at least they know they can get some relevant content about what their particular need is. Then it's a matter of going through the process of giving them additional stuff that they want. But who is your ideal client? So if you don't have some kind of really focused in version of your ideal client, I would recommend that you go through this little process. So let me, instead of doing this completely from scratch, I'm going to show you an example of this. So what this is a prompt that you can put into ChatGPT. This will help you identify who it is that you really want to help, your niche, your your ideal client. And if you just copy this entire prompt, right click and copy, go to ChatGPT and then paste it in, which is exactly what I did here. It'll go through. Now, I've specified in the prompt that I want 10 detailed questions. I specifically want 10. If you want more, if you want less, you can certainly do that. Do you have to specify it? No, but sometimes if you don't specify it, it will cut short or not really dive deeper. 10 is really a real good number for this. So the prompt basically says, let's embark on a comprehensive journey to define your ideal customer or client. I will guide you through a series of 10 detailed questions, each question designed to get deeper into the characteristics, the preferences, the behavior of your ideal customer. As you respond to each question, take a moment to reflect and provide as much detail as possible. Your response will help paint a vivid picture of who your ideal customer is. So we're just telling ChatGPT, first off, this is what we're doing, okay? After each response, so once I respond, this is a dynamic prompt. This is not a one prompt, one response type of thing. This is a dynamic one where it builds up to 10 different items, and that's why we put that in there. After each response, I will present the next question, allowing the profile to evolve and gradually become more refined. The process is to ensure that no aspect of your ideal customer's profile is overlooked. Once you've answered all the questions, I will synthesize your responses into comprehensive and detailed description of ideal client. We will cover the various aspects of this. And if you want something a little bit different, definitely change them. And this is just part of the prompt. These are the things that are really most important about your ideal customer. What are the demographics, the lifestyles, the goals, the challenges, the decision-making processes. This method approach aims to leave no stone unturned in your quest for understanding the target thoroughly. Let's begin with a few questions and start through the process. Now, that prompt, because it's a dynamic prompt, it's going to start the process. The process then says, okay, question 1, demographics. Could you please describe the demographics? And this is where I had taken what we had typed in previously about kind of our basic understanding of our person, late 20s, mid 30s, newly married, individuals planning for future family expansion. So, I mean, that was very basic, very not very unique, but it just gave it an initial entry. And we used that in some of our prompts previously. But what we really need is something more detailed. This isn't bad, but it could be a whole lot better. And so by describing that basic piece, it can go through and start building this bigger picture. So now we're going to go through and we've typed in this piece and I press enter. ChatGPT says, okay, I've got that question answered. Now let's go to the next question. So it progressively goes through. Now what it does is it uses the content that you used in your previous question, the response that you gave in that previous question, to build upon the next question. So considering that these are newly married couples and individuals in their late 20s, what are typical lifestyles and values? Think about their daily routines, their hobbies, their social activities. What are they, and you can go through and you can just type in as much detail. I put in just a few lines just to kind of get the response out of the way, but get in there and define this. Put as much detail as possible that identifies your niche, your ideal client. You put that in, and then it goes to question 3, and then 4, and you're just, each time you're responding back to the questions 6, 7, 8, the barriers to purchase, influencers, and then post purchase behavior. Are they, do they want to do any kind of things after the purchase? And you can put all that in there. So based off of that, then it says, okay, based on all your responses, here's a comprehensive profile of your ideal customer. So here now we've got a much more detailed, much more refined and defined information of my person. And it's just built it upon question, clarifying the things that you want. Over the holiday, I was seeing advertisements on some videos that I was watching, and they were talking about one question a week. And basically this company is out there, they're sending out emails and saying, send this to your parent, sign your parent up. It's going to email a question a week about how they grew up or whatever. And then at the end of the year, it'll define an entire book and create this book. I thought it was brilliant. But this is the same type of thing. One question at a time then builds this much larger, much more refined content you can then use for your prompt. So you could then take this piece, this entire piece of description that you've got here, copy that, and then in the systems that we talked about from last week, where we said, okay, sorry, go down here. My ideal client is, right here's the prompt that we use. The better thing would then be take this and then paste in that entire prompt that we just got back from ChatGPT. That makes it so much clearer for the stuff that's going to be coming up later, and building upon the prompts that you provide in later parts of the stream. So does that help you guys? Does that make sense? Any questions with that first off? No? All right. So that's one thing, just helping you identify your client. And this is needed simply because we want to make sure that our content is geared towards a certain type of person. So making sure that you've got that defined is extremely important first off. The other part of this is, which I did not cover, and I really should have, is whenever you're dealing with ChatGPT, you have a couple options. You can go in there and you can, on any given prompt that you've got in here, if you want to refine this prompt and give more pertinent information about yourself, who you are, what type of agent you are, what team you have, how long you've been in business, what company, all this stuff to help you customize and refine the content to be about you through your eyes. And it's important to identify that in these as well. So you have two options. Number one is you can go in there and you can just type all that information in. So my name is whatever, your trusted real estate partner. It's with over X number of years in the industry. I specialize in residential, first-time home buyers, whatever that is, which you could have used the content of some of the stuff that was responded by in that last one in a specific neighborhood or city area. My approach is tailored to each client, ensuring personalized experience and focus on unique needs. My achievements, my personal services, my community focus, these are all things about you. Be as detailed as you want, with the restriction of, if you're going to put this in a custom instruction, and I'm going to explain what this is, you need to have this in 1,500 characters or less. Now, you can make this as a prompt and save this prompt, and before you start any new thread in your ChatGPT, you could just paste this in. There's add-ons that you can use to save these types of things, but identify you and who you are inside this prompt so that responses that are generated are personalized to you, are about you to your customers. Hoping that's clear. So basically, whenever you are in, let me come down here. Whenever you're in ChatGPT, and this is the kind of the free version of ChatGPT. Let me go ahead and go into slide so it gets this a little bigger. If you're in just the free version of ChatGPT, you still have access to this. Down in the lower left-hand corner of your screen, you can click on your name and go to this custom instructions. And whenever you go to custom instructions, there are two boxes, and each box is limited to 1,500 characters. That's why I was saying you need to limit your stuff. But what you can do is build that that response of information based off of that prompt, filling in the little pieces, and then just paste it in here to identify who you are. What would you like to know about you and your team, or however, what's your business? And then there's another place on here on what would you like ChatGPT to how would you like them to respond? And what's your voice? And that's another prompt is create a voice. What does this sound like? What's and we've got some videos in our training on this particular one already, where you can go in there and say, okay, well, my voice, how I speak, verbose. I'm very verbose, unfortunately, and descriptive, detailed and complete, though thought-provoking and creative. I use a CRM called Realvolve for emails and SMS messages that use merge fields, greeting, bracket, greeting, bracket, for contact's first name and signature, contain the citation. When creating emails and SMS, use these merge fields, and then a quick piece. And you can turn this on or off. Whenever you turn this on, anytime that you start a brand new thread, it utilizes this information. Now you can turn it off, turn it on. The other option, instead of using the custom instructions, which if you don't use the custom instruction, you just have to do it each and every time you start a new thread, is just go ahead and typing in that whole piece of information. So my name all the way down to the bottom, copying and pasting that right into with the values that are yours into a prompt and pressing enter, and it will then remember you for that entire thread. Okay. Now, I was showing this image as the free version. The one limitation I should say is that any of these threads, whenever you start a new conversation, if you don't have the paid version, there is a limit to the amount of memory that it retains and remembers in any particular thread. So if you go for pages upon pages upon pages of information, some of the content can get lost. If you've got the paid version, I think it's like 300 pages of information. It's 120,000 tokens that it remembers, which is huge, and it's like 300 pages of information. So you just really won't typically run out of space if you've got the paid version. If you don't have it, then it's certainly important to kind of refresh it every once in a while with your pertinent information if it starts forgetting stuff. Anyway, so this is one thing that you can do to identify who you are and making sure that you put that information into the system so that whenever it's creating the content, it's personalizing that content about you to your ideal customer. Okay. I also included this piece, which is kind of the example that I gave in the how to respond section. Again, put in how you speak, how you talk. This is me, so definitely change it for your purposes. But definitely, if you wanted to use this part of it about merge fields, this helps the system know whenever I'm creating SMS messages, whenever I'm creating email messages, I want to make sure I use, dear greeting and signature in there, no matter what the body of the message is. So these merge fields, since it knows the merge fields, whenever it creates that content for you, you can just copy and paste it right into Realvolve and not worry about having to retype those sections in. It will work just fine that way. Any questions about that? So just as an example, well, if there are any questions, certainly reach out. Let's see here. This was all at the end here. Coming back here. Okay, so up here, using the greeting, we did this last week where we were talking about greeting and signature. That's the same type of thing. Whenever it creates this, I can then just copy and paste that right into our templates. Social media engagement. We went through creating content. Oh, and I did make a slight change and alteration to our prompts, which are down here on this establishing connection. I did change this from last week's content. Just kind of updated it and made sure that it was in the format that we want, because whenever we did this procedure in last week's, it didn't give it exactly the format that I wanted. So I've refined that a little bit and made that more pertinent. Asking the right questions. Anytime that you're creating the content, again, making sure that the content goes with the ideal client is what we're wanting to do. Okay, there's the embarking, there's all the questions that we did. The one thing that we want to make sure of is all this content is geared towards our client. Okay, so that kind of that was kind of the recap of last week and the missing part that I kind of overlooked. Now, what we want to do is really talk about the assess and advise. Assess and advise really just kind of comes down to tailoring your advice based off of your lead's specific situations. Again, this is giving them the correct information for who they are. The pertinent information of who they are. So I've got a prompt here, based on my ideal client profile, help me identify questions that should be addressed in the jumping ahead, I should have assess and advise, sorry. Based on the ideal client profile. Help me identify questions that should be addressed in the assess and advise phase, which is crucial to guiding potential home buyers or sellers through their process, their decision-making process. Include prompts that could be used to help research the issue. So what this is, and this is the prompt itself. So if we come over here and look at the assess and advise based off this part right here, and this just kind of gives a sample response. It's not actually the one that I use because I changed it just a little bit, but this particular one goes through and helps you identify questions that help you during that assessment process. How do you assess and advise your clients? You should probably already know this. This is not something that you have to use, but it's something that might help you spur on additional ideas or things that you ought to talk about whenever you are assessing and advising your clients. Understand, so the prompt itself comes back and responds back in the assess and advise phase, your ideal for your ideal client, first-time home buyers in their late 20s. So it kind of rephrases back who that person is. It's important to ask questions that not only assess their needs and preferences, but also encourages to think critically and do their own research. Here are some questions along the way to prompts that could be used to help them research their issue. So these are things that you could create content for and emailing them as part of that nurturing phase. Once you've hooked them and we're responding back with the 20 days of emails, some of this might be in place of some of those contact points, helping them think critically about what it is that that they're doing in this home search phase or first-time home buyer phase. So understanding home ownership goals. What are your primary goals of home ownership? Are you looking for a starter home or long-term investment? This is one prompt, one question in a multitude that you could use as part of your 20 days of communication with them to get that signed agreement. And then you could even use a prompt at ChatGPT. I recommend looking at market trends for the past years in your preferred area. This gives you insight into whether your homes in these areas are appreciate over time. Now, this is a research prompt. Actually, it's not really what I was looking for. I should have read that better. I was looking for how can I, and actually, I guess you could still use this, paste this in as a prompt because we have identified you in your neighborhood or whatever. It probably should have or would have put your information in there as far as what areas you help in. In my case, Bolivar, Missouri. I help first-time home buyers in Bolivar, Missouri. But this type of information helps spur on the ideas, and you can create other prompts that dive deeper into these. And the whole idea here is, again, making the content that we need in order for those home buyers to see that you can help them. Okay. Now I could copy this information. I could go into Realvolve. I could paste that into a template and do some emailing out, edit out the things that you don't want, add in things that you do want, and make it content that's relevant. Each one of these could be their own separate email, their own separate piece, and just dive deeper into each one of the responses. Offer a call to action. What kind of call to action could you put in there? Click here for an additional handout, and use this to build that handout. We could go in there and identify any of these and say, build build content that I can put into a PDF for my ideal client to access for this. Takes that topic and the information, budget considerations, and then it will build out the entire document for you. You then copy and paste that in, create the PDF, and then include that as a response attachment to your email. I mean, there's so much that you can do to identify the things that that is pertinent to them, that is going to drive them back to you each and every time, and build up that relationship between you and that customer. In this case here, I mean, it's just diving really deep into, budget and finance considerations, exploring your mortgage options, the fixed rate, adjustable rate. I remember back, it's a long time ago, whenever we bought our first house, all this stuff was mystical to me. And the thing that you guys may or may not remember is you guys are experts at this. You know what these are. You touch on them each and every day, but your customers don't. They don't know this stuff, and you are educating them. You're giving them the resources that they need to better prepare themselves as first-time home buyers or luxury home or whatever your niche is. Okay. And creating this content in this way helps build your tool set of content, but also helps build the systems that you're going to provide to them so that you can scale your business in a much bigger, broader way. The more content you have, the more systems you can create and provide to your customers. Questions on that? I know I'm hitting you guys with a lot. Is all that makes sense? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Are you asleep? I'm not getting anything, but hopefully you're not asleep. All right. So that's really the assess and advise, tailoring the advice based on your lead specifications, providing that personalized property suggestions, investment advice, market analysis. Show your expertise and reliability. Be the expert that you are. That's really all this comes down to. But using the tools, the ChatGPT as a tool to provide content to your systems that you're building, and then all you're doing is building a workflow that sends these out on a regular basis, or creates the email that has the call to action that links to the content on your website, so that that they're clicking, or that they're doing something. They're filling out additional information and providing you with additional information. So that's what that is. Similarly, is the last thing, where lead to agreement. So we've got our lead, we've been nurturing them, convert that nurtured lead into a signed agreement, whether that be a listing agreement or a buyer's agreement. Since they're first-time home buyers, you're really talking about the buyer's agreement in this case. But discuss the benefits of buyer listing agreements, and assess any concerns and negotiate terms, close the deal with a formal agreement. So in this particular case, we can do something very similar as the as the other one, and say, you know, based on our ideals customer profile, help me identify questions that should be addressed to the lead to agreement phase. Focus shifts converting the nurtured lead into a signed agreement, either buyer's agreement or seller's agreement. Prompts in this phase should be designed to encourage commitment, address financial concerns, and guide the lead towards making the decision. So exact same type of prompt. If I'm using my same thread, the same thread is about first-time home buyers. So if I paste this in, it starts going through the issues that pertain to first-time home buyers, and all that kind of go along with it. So it just really helps identify the steps, help clearly identify the thought patterns of people in those phases, and some of the things that they should be thinking about, so that you can advise them to think about this, and you know, really showing off who you are as an advisor, and ultimately getting that lead converted. It's not hard. It's just a process. And again, each one of these can be used to build up other content, other pieces. Maybe you, instead of having, well, you get to a point in your first 20 days where you know they're a solid lead. Maybe you don't need, maybe you need to change the conversation from just informing to informing, and ensuring their trust in you as their advisor, and what they should think about. A little bit different change in their mindset, so that they start moving towards that signing of the agreement. So you might stop one workflow and start another one, which is a little bit more serious, a little bit in the path. And this is really why in Realvolve, why we have kind of three phases of a lead. You have of course, you have your, let me just go in there. Production. So whenever you go into Realvolve, and this is an important understanding of why it's set up the way it is whenever you come in and look at your contact cross section, and let me zoom in on that a little bit here. You have suspect, prospect, lead. And the rationale behind that, I mean, you could just say, hey, I've got a bunch of new leads. Well, technically, leads go through different phases. The suspect is somebody brand new. They just kind of heard about you. They filled in maybe some information on your website, and you've started sending them information. They may not have responded to you at all or whatever, but this is where that first 20 days of contact can start. And at some point, maybe they go in and they start asking some pertinent questions. Well, technically, they've moved to the next phase of that lead, being, hey, they're more of a prospect. They've gone from suspect, where I don't know them much, to more of a prospect, where I have a glimpse. They're not I don't know for sure that they're willing to let me help them or not, but potentially. And you're starting some conversations, and maybe there's 20 questions here, but at some point they change to prospect. You could stop that workflow and go into something a little bit deeper, a different workflow that is more geared towards, hey, I know they're really interested in this particular thing. Let's put them on this workflow and go down this avenue. At some point in there, they're going to be even more serious. And then that's where they really become a lead. and then ultimately they sign on the dotted line to get to the client. So the three different versions of leads, suspect, prospect, lead, is really geared for helping you focus in on how you can help them. And you don't just go in from, I've got a lead and just blast them with all kinds of things about your services and stuff. They want to know more about their needs. How can you help them in a softer way and build up that relationship? You guys get this all the time, I'm sure, from your coaches and other people that advise you, but this is how you use it within Realvolve, is identifying those and putting them through the different aspects. And using ChatGPT as a system for your system just gives you that content. Unfortunately, real estate agents, you guys have a lot on your mind, and being creative is not always your biggest ability. Your biggest ability is building relationships with these people, and creating the content to help build those relationships is not always the strong suit. Sometimes it is, but in a majority of the cases, I found that they're not. And ChatGPT gives you the resource now that you can do this, and you don't have to offload this to some marketing person that you're going to, pay buku bucks just to build this for you, where they don't even necessarily know who you are, what you are. This helps build it for you, and then, go through that process. At some point, if you want a marketing person to go deeper, then use the content that you've got, provide that to them to help them understand who you are, so that the content they build is much more geared towards what you do. And that's it. Any questions? This was really a kind of a deeper dive into what we missed from last week, but the emphasis of these two items are important, because you're not only reaching out, you're building the content initially for them to identify themselves. You're then establishing a connection. You're building that. This is that. If you're going to look at it, it's that suspect side of this. This might be more of the prospect side, where you're going through, and then the lead to agreement, if you will. So that's kind of how this all breaks down. You're building the content, you're building up those relationships, and then ultimately getting the signed agreement. That's all I have. We're about 10 minutes. Any questions? Good, bad, indifferent? All right. I'm not hearing anything. Either you guys, oh, good stuff. Okay, thanks, Greg. Appreciate that. All right, so everybody, I hope you had a good holiday. Next week we are going to be diving into some additional stuff, but we've got New Year's coming up, so everybody have a super New Year's, and certainly take some time to be with your friends, your family, and enjoy the time away. Talk to you later. Have a great day. Bye.